Okay, so we are recording now, and I want to share my screen so I can show you our agenda for today. Thank you, everyone, for your messages in the chat room. I appreciate that. Um, so let's take a look at our Zoom session for
Oh,
today.
Professor,
Yes.
what I was doing is Taekwon.
Hey, Taekwon.
I'm at my training for my job real quick. But
Okay.
it's not over till 1.
Okay. Cool. So yeah,
But
stick around as long as you can.
I'm sticking around. Can I speak to you after class though?
Yeah. Well, actually, today I can't. Unfortunately, I could
All
tomorrow,
right,
or
all right,
because today I have a department meeting right after class.
all right. No problem. I'll speak
Tomorrow.
to you under mine.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. That works.
All right, I'm gonna stay in the class though.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we've got our agenda up here, and you might notice that's not Molly. No, it's not Molly. This is Zashoni's dog. Zashoni, tell us about your dog. What's your dog's name?
So he's a female, and he's a Shih Tzu.
A Shih
That,
Tzu, a female, and what's her name?
no, that's a male. His
Oh,
name is Marble.
Marble.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And you also notice down here, yeah, I put that up here because there's actually research that shows that when people look at animals, it increases their ability to focus. It sounds really bizarre, but I thought, what the heck? There's nothing to lose here. So Zashoni was willing to share a photo of Marble, and if you want, you can. You see down here, if you want to share a picture of your pet, I'd be happy to put it in our agenda next time. And I'll probably just do one at a time. So if I get a number of them, I might just do, it might take a little while for yours to come up in the agenda, but I would love to do that. It's a nice way to start the class and get to know each other a little bit better. So you can just send it to my email if you have a photo of any kind of pet. So as for the rest of the agenda today, we've done our poll. We're going to talk about fake news today, and how to find out if something is fake news. And so yeah, we'll do a couple of breakout rooms and look at some things that are actually fake news and compare them to other things that have been called fake news, and also look at some of the different terminology used for fake news. So first I'm going to share with you, let's see. First I'm going to share with you 3 Facebook's most shared posts. And we are going to do a breakout room for this one. And I'm just going to ask you to find out which of these are fake news, if any of them are. So the first one is AOC proposed a motorcycle ban. So I'm going to write that into the chat room so that you have that available. So AOC proposed a motorcycle ban. Okay, so that's the first article. If you don't know who AOC is, anyone know who she is? AOC, this is her right here. Her name is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is in her mid-30s and was one of the youngest. Actually, no, I think she was 29 when so she's in her low 30s now. I think she was 29 when she was elected to the House of Representatives just a few years ago. And she got there and instantly became one of the most famous members of the House of Representatives. She is a Democrat, and she fights she's very vocal about the issues that she cares about. So she's made her way into the news in many ways. So she's become kind of a target of the right. So there's lots of articles about her, and she is actually from Queens. She's a House of Representatives member from Queens, New York. So anybody in her district, you would be able to vote for her or vote against her, depending on your preferences this coming election. So that's who she is. That's one article. The second one is, type that into Nancy, her documentary on Netflix. Nice. Thank you, Tenzin. Pelosi diverting Social Security money, oops, for the impeachment inquiry. So that's the name of the second one. If you don't know who Nancy Pelosi, well, I'll ask again, does anyone know who Nancy Pelosi is? Nancy Pelosi. We actually, yeah, speaker, not the Speaker of the White House, the Speaker of the House. So again, there's the executive branch, which is the White House, and led by Trump, and he gets one vote, and it's an all-powerful vote. But there's checks and balances. So there's the Senate, there's 100 members in the Senate, and there's the House of Representatives. There's, I think, 435 or something members of the House of Representatives. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of those members. Nancy Pelosi is also one of those members. The difference is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has just, I've got two people in the waiting room. One second here. Okay, thank you. And so, there we go. Going back, there we go. So Nancy Pelosi is on the other side of that. She has been in the House for a long, long time, and she is now the Speaker of the House, which means she is the topmost person in the House. She leads the House of Representatives, and in that way, many call her the most powerful woman in America. That's political. Other people might say there are other people who are not political who are more powerful, but politically, she has a lot of power. And then the third one, you might already start to think about this one. Trump's grandfather was a pimp and tax evader. His father, a member of the KKK. I don't think Trump needs any introduction. In case you don't know what the KKK is, it stands for the Ku Klux Klan. We've talked about them actually already. It's an organization that originates in the 19th century. They used to ride around on horses with bed sheets on and big conical masks on, covering their faces. And they would burn crosses. And their main mission, they believe that white people are a superior race, and everybody else is not as good as white people. And so they have a history of violence and burning and lynchings, and it's really an awful organization. So to say that he's connected to the KKK is a big insult. So those are the three articles. And I'm going to type one more piece of information. That is, if you recall, we used Snopes at one point to look up whether something is true or not. So we're going to go into breakout rooms. And what you'll want to do in your breakout room is first go to Snopes.com and then look at the Alexandria AOC proposed a motorcycle ban. Search for that and see if you can find an evaluation of that news item. And what Snopes will do is, Snopes as an organization, they take articles like that and they just start researching it. And it's not a question of, is it fake or real? It's actually a lot more complicated than that. So you'll find that not everything is very super clear, whether it is fake or not fake, fake or real. Sometimes there's a gray area. So do the best you can, and with your group, you want to look at all three of those articles and see if you can find information on Snopes about them, and then just write down what you find. And then we'll come back to our main session and talk about it. So let's do 4 rooms. Are there any questions at all before we start?
Yes, you have to go to a website. What's the website called?
Yeah, let me show you Snopes before we do this. So everyone should do this right now. Go to www.snopes.com on your computer. And this, again, is a fact-checking site. And that means their job is to research whether or not certain claims are true. And so AOC proposed a motorcycle ban. Is that true? And you can just type it in here. And you can see I've actually done that already. So you type it into Snopes and hit enter, and they will show you any articles that match the terms that you searched. And you'll want to find the closest one. ideally you find that exact one, not that exact wording, but that exact concept. And then click on that and read through what it says. And then talk about it with your group and see if you can come to a conclusion. Is it a fake story? Is it a real story? Is it a gray area in between? And why do you think so? Does that help, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, so here come the breakout rooms.
An article?
Everybody clear on what to do in here?
Yeah.
No.
Did Shona, you say yes?
Yeah.
Did somebody say no?
Yes, me, Professor.
Okay, you're a little unclear on what to do.
Yeah, I'm lost.
You lost. Okay. So have you gone to the website Snopes.com?
Okay.
So you want to go to that website
Okay.
and then open our chat window. And I put 3 article titles into the chat window. One of them is AOC proposed a motorcycle ban. That's the first one. So you just want to type that into Snopes, into their search window, and see if they have evaluated that as fake news or not fake news or whatever. And then the other 2 articles, one is about Nancy Pelosi, and the third one is about Trump's grandfather being a pimp. So yeah, you look up all 3 of those article titles. They were the top 3 articles on Facebook in 2019.
Professor,
Yes.
this is not about the topic, but do you think they're gonna give them money? Because now Trump is saying that he don't like we had to wait to the election to give money. Why?
Yeah, we can talk about that as a class if you want. It is complicated. The gist of it is, there's a
Like he's gonna
balance.
lose anyway. Why?
Yeah. Well, he's trying to win. I think he's doing everything he can to win, and for some reason he thinks this is the best way forward. So we'll see what happens. Sometimes he changes his mind on a dime sometimes, so it might be different tomorrow.
I hope.
Yeah, I know that Pelosi is working to try and come up with a new plan. All right, I'm gonna go check out another group. Everybody good here?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, Professor.
you're welcome.
There's no result of the Nancy Pelosi thing.
Yeah, I was about to say that. It doesn't say anything, so.
Yeah.
Everything good here?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, just pop it in to make sure everyone knows what to do.
okay. So what should
Oh, it's just the 2 of you, huh? Mia and Arube, do you know what to do? Someone probably, yeah, 2 people did not join your group for whatever reason. Sorry about that.
Can y'all hear me? Cause I can't hear y'all.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
A little bit. I don't know. I gotta fix my iPad. I'll be back.
I see. Okay.
because it's glitching. I don't know what's wrong with it. I can't barely hear y'all.
I see. Okay. Arube, do you know what to do?
All right.
Not really, but I'm kind of stuck.
You're looking up articles?
Yeah, but I'm kind of stuck. Like,
Oh, you're kind of stuck.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Are you on Snopes.com?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you just want to go to the chat room, open up the chat window,
Uh-huh.
and there's 3 article titles that I put into the chat window. One of them is AOC proposed a motorcycle ban. Do you see that one?
No. Trump's grandfather was a pimp.
It's in the chat window, 10:08 a.m. AOC proposed a motorcycle ban. Do you see the chat window?
Yeah, but I don't see that. All I see is Trump's grandfather was a pimp and tax evader. His father, a member of the KKK, and then all I see is Snopes.com.
Okay. Can you scroll up? Or does it not allow you?
It doesn't let me. No, it's not allowing me to.
I see. Okay. So maybe that didn't come through. So here's the other 2 articles. Here's the first ones. You see it now?
AOC proposed a motorcycle.
And then,
Okay.
so you want to look that, just type that into, and here's the second one. And the third one is the one about Trump's grandfather. So you want to look those up in Snopes and see if they're true. Are they fake news or they're not? So Snopes, when you type in that article title, it'll suggest some, you want to see if maybe they have found, they have information on that. And if you see that they do have a response to that article, click on it, and then you can read what they say. And they'll eventually evaluate it. And they'll say, this is false, this is true, this is kind of false, kind of true, this is misleading. There's a few different categories that they have.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. Everything going okay in here?
Yeah, we was able to find everything really fast.
Oh, great. So you're done.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I'm going to close things down in about a minute or so.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, we've got about 20 seconds till everybody's back. Okay, and we're back. I know that some of you probably did not get all the way to the end, but hopefully you got through at least one of them to see how Snopes works. And before we look at your answers, I want to show you yet another fact-checking site called PolitiFact. And this one this one's kind of famous for its categories. They have this meter on here. So it says Susan Collins pushed for policies that benefited her husband's lobbying business, and they say mostly false. And says he strongly supports legalization for dreamers. That's John Cornyn, and that's half true. And so they give you these kinds of they give you these kinds of like a degree of how true it is according to a meter. What do they call it? The truthometer, or truth. Yeah. So this one, for example, President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden left me 128 judges to fill. You just don't do that. And this says it's mostly false. This is something that that Donald Trump said during the last debate. Here he is at the debate, talking endlessly. So why it says fact check, and they write a whole article explaining it, so you can read about it, and they have a graph. So this is the idea of fact checking, and you can, instead of just having to decide, do I believe it, do I not believe it, you can evaluate the source. Okay, Donald Trump said that. If you evaluate him already, you know that he lies a lot. That's part of what he does. That doesn't mean that he is lying. It just means that he has a reputation for lying. And where did it come from? Well, he said it came directly from him. It didn't go from him to another news source. It came directly from him at a debate. So then the third step we can take is to look at the fact check of it. And for example, they just go and they look at how many judges how many judge positions were not filled when he left office. And what they found was that it was mostly false. So that's just another one. They've got one that is like a pants on fire thing from the childhood thing where they say liar, liar. Here it is, pants on fire. Says Donald Trump said, the doctor said they'd never seen a body kill the coronavirus like my body. They tested my DNA and it wasn't DNA, it was USA. Somebody said that, a viral image. Okay, so this one came from a Facebook post. You might have seen something like that on a Facebook post if you use that website. And, and then oftentimes it's not attributed to anyone. In this case, it was written by Ciara O'Rourke. But what they found is that this is a pants on fire thing, which means it has no basis in reality. So the one we're doing, however, is Snopes. And I would love to hear what you came up with. So I'm going to go back to the breakout rooms. And let's start with, can we start with Huiru? Would you be willing to share what you found for the first article, AOC? Is it true that AOC proposed a motorcycle ban?
The first news is fake.
Okay.
The second news, I cannot find it. But the news I found is one is mostly fake and other one is neutral.
I see. Okay, so that's
Like mix.
the first one was easy. The other two were more complicated.
Yes.
Okay, and you found that the first one was fake. So let's take a look at what it says. All you have to do is type that into here. So you can see I've already done that. So I just take the news article and put the title into Snopes and type return. And it finds only one search result. So it's an all or nothing thing. If it's not the right search result, obviously you can't use it. But did Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez propose a nationwide motorcycle ban? So it's perfect. We got it. So you click on it. And we would like to think that things are true, are easy, true or false. And this one happens to be. It's just straight false. This is a pants on fire kind of thing. And then if you look for an explanation, it says in 2019, Tate is going to Tate website falsely reported that she proposed a nationwide ban. So they just came up with a story, invented a story that has no basis in reality. And Snopes just goes to look, does this have any basis in reality? Did she ever say that? Did she ever write a bill that says that? Did she ever connect with an organization that wants to ban motorcycles? And after doing all that research, Snopes found no evidence whatsoever that that is true. And so you could call that a conspiracy theory, but really it's just fake news. They call it junk news. And then you have to wonder, why would people do that? So I'm going to turn that to you. Why do you think? So here's the group, or here's a group of people on motorcycles. Why do you think this organization, Tate is going to Tate, why would they create this fake news story? Anyone have any ideas? Why would they do that? Think for a moment. Yeah.
There could be many reasons, like some do it for money. They just give some tempting headline, and when people click it, they get money. And also sometimes they will just want to influence people, like not to support someone or go against someone. That could be a reason. Yeah, I think those are valid reasons to spread fake news.
That's great. That's exactly why they would do it. There's to try to influence people. You know what? In this section in our unit on media, a lot of you asked in that last question, that freebie question. As long as you ask me a question, you get a point. A lot of you asked, why do people lie in the media? Why? Or another question I got was, why is all media flawed? And what's so important about this concept of media that I'd like to carry forward to fake news is that when you have a gap between the actual truth and the way of representing the truth, that way of representing the truth being media, you can fill that gap with all kinds of stuff. You can fill that gap by leading people in the wrong direction. You can fill that gap by doing everything you can to be as honest and trustworthy as possible. You can fill that gap by just being completely fake about it, just completely false about it. There's all kinds of things you can do in that gap. And it is a way that people manipulate other people. And almost always it comes down to money and power, which are pretty much the same thing. And so in this case, if these motorcycle people, they probably do not like her as a politician and want her to lose. So this is a play for power, trying to get her to lose her election. What about the second article? And I'm going to go with, let's see. Yes, I'm trying to recall who we didn't hear from on, oh, Erube. Did you find anything on the second article?
Which is the second article?
The second,
Nancy Pelosi?
Yes, sorry, that's confusing. Yeah, the Nancy Pelosi article.
No. On the, what's this website called again?
Yeah, so
nope, I didn't find anything. It wasn't popping up.
I see, okay. So I'm just gonna copy it. Did anybody else find anything about Nancy Pelosi?
I found some articles in the factcheck.org, and they're saying it's fake.
Excellent, great. So you went to factcheck.org and they said it was fake. And let's see if I can find it on Snopes. I typed in her name incorrectly. So this is it's more sensitive than Google. Google, you can type things in. So here, I'm just going to put a simplified version. Nancy Pelosi diverted money for impeachment. And so at this point, I get it. So with fact-checking sites, again, Google has an extremely sophisticated search engine. So you can misspell things, you can write things incorrectly, and a lot of times it still guesses what you were trying to ask it. But Snopes, most websites don't have that kind of sophistication in their search engine. So here's the question: did Pelosi divert billions from Social Security to cover impeachment costs? So I was able to find it, but I had to try 3 different times. And sometimes that's just the case. The other thing you can do is what Moriam did, which is try another fact-checking site. And you use factcheck.org. Let's take a quick look at that since. So here's factcheck.org, yet another fact-checking site. I mean, there's so many of them because of the fact that we have a lot of fake news these days. So that's another one you can use, but I'm going to click on this one. Did Pelosi divert billions from Social Security to cover impeachment costs? Another, I'm going to remind you of this word because I'm going to try and corroborate. Because you might wonder, well, how can we trust fact-checking sites? And you know, they have a reputation to uphold, so they have a vested interest in being honest. So that's good. That's a helpful thing. But also, you can corroborate, and that just means listen to a variety of different voices. And if they all say the same thing or a similar thing, that doesn't mean it is true or false. It just increases the likelihood that whatever they said is accurate. So we're hoping that we can corroborate Snopes with factcheck.org, and that would mean that this is false on Snopes. So let's see. So this one, it says, is labeled satire. This is the term. This is a great term. Satire, I'll put that in the chat window as well. Anyone know what satire is? So satire, I'm going to show you satire, and it's like the most famous satire site. I have no idea what's on their homepage right now. Sometimes it's, well, we'll see, but hopefully it's not offensive. TheOnion.com. This is a satirical website, and what that means, okay, so like I said, this is like kind of offensive. They have stuff like that. Trump supporters fighting over used tissues president tossed from his SUV. So this is an example of satire. This is meant to be obviously not true. And it's supposed to be funny. That's what satire is. It's supposed to be so obvious that it's not true that it makes you laugh, that people would be having a fight over used tissues that are going to give them coronavirus that he tossed from his SUV. So that's what satire is. It's supposed to make you laugh. So if they determine that this is satire and the other one said that it is false, we've now corroborated that story. And we can be pretty safe in saying that that one is also not true. What about the third one, which is about Trump's grandfather? This is the one that sounded most unlikely to be true. But we have to check it. Don't just go with your gut. Check it and find out. Trump's grandfather was a pimp and tax evader. His father was a member of the KKK. Did anyone find out whether that was true? Deshoni?
Oh, wait, no, I ain't pressed mine.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And obviously it is true because his father is the KKK.
Well, did you find that? Because we have to talk about the truth.
Nah, I just read about it.
You read about it, okay.
I just watched some video of Trump back then and his father too.
So I'm going to ask, because we're on this subject of evaluating media, where did you see that?
I don't know, but it was a long time ago. I found it like around Wikipedia, but I don't remember it.
Okay.
But it was very crazy that his father was the part of the KKK. I got a little nervous, a little bit.
Well, we're gonna fact check that and see if that's true. I'm gonna ask. Let's go with Tenzin. Would you be willing to share what your group came up with for whether that all that stuff about Trump?
About the pimp, it was mostly false.
Okay.
And about the KKK, it was mixture.
Okay.
And about the tax thing, I got no result.
Okay, great, excellent. And did you find those two results on Snopes?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go and check that out. Go back to Snopes. And again, I'm going to try and use the words I think are most likely to be in that article. So, grandfather, pimp, father, KKK. See if that shows something. Okay. Aha. Did Trump's grandfather make his fortune in prostitution? So here's his grandfather. Was a pimp and drug dealer. So that's the claim, and the rating is mostly false. The same thing that you got, Tenzin. And then look at the story that goes along with it. And that's what part of what I like about Snopes and why I'm directing you to Snopes. It's one thing to read this, but I need to know why. I need to know that they have done their research. And so what they do is they construct this story that help us to understand. Here is a thing that was posted on Facebook, and it was sent around Facebook saying, you know, this is the situation with his grandfather. He was a pimp and everything. And so people were sending this around Facebook. There's probably, that says meme team. There probably was no other author cited on that, but people see it as a news item and they forward it and forward it and forward it. However, what we find out by reading this is, yes, he actually did own a restaurant, and at that restaurant, let's see, I read this and found a section where they may have gotten that. Here we go. This section right here. I would advise respectable women traveling alone. Like, this is super old, so they thought about men and women differently then. I would advise respectable women traveling alone or with an escort to be careful in their selection of hotels at Bennett. He wrote, for single men, the Arctic, that's the name of the restaurant, has excellent accommodations as well as the best restaurant in Bennett. But I would not advise respectable women. Respectable women is probably what they were saying, women who are not prostitutes or who don't have sex before marriage. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that, but something along those lines. I would not advise respectable women to go there to sleep, as they are liable to hear that which would be repugnant to their feelings and uttered to by the depraved of their own sex, which is a 19th century way of saying they might hear prostitutes having sex. So they shouldn't go there. That would be offensive to the fragile women of that time, which is an exaggeration. I'm being sarcastic. So yeah, we can say that that is mostly false because he wasn't a pimp, but he owned a restaurant, and someone said that there were ladies, there were prostitutes there. So was he a pimp? It's hard to know, but there's not enough evidence to say something like that. And certainly this post is an exaggeration of that. So we can call all of those fake news, really. And the reason why is because I said they were the top 3 articles on Facebook. I kind of lied on that. That was fake news. They're the top 3 fake news articles on Facebook. And let's take a look at the rest of them just to get a sense of what kinds of stories are out there. Joe Biden calls Trump supporters dregs of society. In other words, like the worst people in society. And so this one appeared, well, all of these are on Facebook. So this one got passed around. New York City coroner, the person who evaluates deaths, who declared the death of Jeffrey Epstein a suicide, made $500,000 a year working for the Clinton Foundation. And then the next one, Tim Allen, quote, Trump's wall costs less than the Obamacare website. So one thing that the 3 of these have in common, these are anti-Joe Biden, anti-Clinton, anti-Democrat, anti-Democrat. Democrats vote to enhance Medicare for illegals now. Vote down vets waiting 10 years for the same service. This is also against Democrats. Nancy Pelosi's son was an executive at a gas company that did business in Ukraine. That's also against Democrats. Ilhan Omar, who is a Muslim serving in the House, she and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are the 2 of the main targets for right-wing websites. Ilhan Omar holding secret fundraisers with Islamic groups tied to terror. Obviously, they're going to try to connect Muslims to terror. That's fake news. It's also attacking Democrats. Trump is now trying to get Mike Pence impeached. I don't even know who that's favoring, Democrats or Republicans. And then we get to the top 3 that we looked at. And this one is clearly against Trump. But what you'll notice is that most of these are anti-Democrat, and there's good reason for that. Hopefully you learned a little bit about that in the docu-series on the New York Times about fake news and why that's happening in that way. Okay, so I want to look at another set of fake news. These are the Fake News Awards. This was invented by Donald Trump while he was president as a way to stir controversy and attack the media, the news media. So he said, let's have a fake news trophy. He wrote this in a tweet. He said, we should have a contest as to which of the networks plus CNN and not including Fox is the most dishonest, corrupt, and or distorted in its political coverage of your favorite president, me. They are all bad. Winner to receive the fake news trophy. Now at this point in our class, I hope a few things stand out about this. They are all bad. Well, we've evaluated these sources that he's going to talk about, and we didn't find that they were all bad. So he has a different perception of the news than we have so far. He's adding plus CNN, so he's not including. So this is an attack on CNN, saying that they're not even a news network, and he's chosen not to include Fox as one of the websites that might have fake news on it. So there's a few things that stand out about that tweet that would suggest that he's not really a good person to be evaluating fake news. So let's take a look at some of these. We have the author, Paul Krugman. We have the organization, the New York Times. We have the story. There was a short op-ed by a New York Times columnist that predicted if markets would recover from the Trump presidency. First pass answer is never. And then there are notes here. Krugman changed the claim 3 days later and wrote that the budget deficits under Trump might actually strengthen the economy. So it's true that his original assessment, he changed his original assessment of it. Does that make what Paul Krugman said fake news? That's my question to you. He said that the markets, in other words, financial markets and the economy, would never recover from a Trump presidency. And then 3 days later, he said, actually, maybe it will strengthen the economy. Is it fake news to say something and then 3 days later say something else? Can I call on someone? Because I would really like to know what you think. Let's try, how about married? You willing to share your thoughts on that? Do you think it's fake news that someone would say, write an article and publish it, and then 3 days later, write an article that says the opposite of what they said the first time? Is that fake news?
Yes.
You think so? Why do you think so?
Because they're going against what they say.
Okay. Yeah, and I would say that that's contradictory. Absolutely. But let's come back. We'll come back to our final evaluation of that in a minute. We'll look at a couple more. Number 2, that was the number 1. That Paul Krugman won. Brian Ross of ABC News, a bungled report on the former National Security Advisor. And the explanation is ABC corrected the error after it pointed out, then suspended Ross for 4 weeks and reassigned him. The report also linked to a temporary drop of 350 points in the Dow Jones, which is an economic market. It's a financial market. So he made an error in reporting about Michael Flynn, and then pointed out that this was wrong and suspended the journalist and reassigned him to a different area of news reporting. So was that original article fake news? And I'm going to try Nicole. Nicole, would you be willing to share? Is it fake news to write an article that is later determined to be incorrectly written and then get suspended and be reassigned? Is that fake news to write that article that someone later on said this is not true?
if luego if before the person make the correction.
That's great. I like that. I like that point you're making. That is a feature of fake news, that you don't make the correction. You just double down. You say, oh, not only was what I said previously true, but I'm going to add more to that and make it even more true. And so they're taking the fake news and making it even more fake. That's the idea of doubling down. And so instead what happened was they found the error, corrected the error, and suspended the journalist and reassigned him to a different area of investigation. And let's look at one more. This one says, this is from Manu Raju and Jeremy Herb from CNN. And the report claims that the Trump campaign had early access to hacked WikiLeaks documents. And the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and NBC News soon caught the error, and then CNN corrected it. Does that count as fake news? So I'm going to ask, let's see, Chantal, what do you think? Does that count as fake news? Okay, let's try Kamira. You think that counts as fake news? That Manu Raju and Jeremy Herb of CNN, they wrote a report claiming that the Trump campaign had yeah, I'm just wondering.
Wait, can you
repeat the question? Yeah, so the question is it fake news?
You're breaking up. Yeah,
I see.
that too.
Can you hear me now? So I'll try once more. Is a report claiming that the Trump campaign had early access to hacked WikiLeaks documents? So the journalists made the report, and then 3 newspapers found out that that's not true, and then the reporters corrected their mistake. Does that count as fake news?
No, it counts as true news because they corrected the fake news.
Okay.
The something.
Yeah, I would agree. In fact, when you read through this, none of these are fake news. They're all mistakes or exaggerations. And you will find one of the ways to tell whether you can trust a news source, an author, or an article is to see their response to those kinds of accusations. Say, if people say that that is not true, are they going to double down on it, or are they going to back off and say, you know what, you're right, I made a mistake, let me fix it? What you'll find here, they caught the error and corrected it. There was a correction issued 40 minutes later and an apology. Let's see, there was a photo, a misleading photo that was deleted, and the reporter issued an apology. So in all of these examples, you'll find that there was some misreporting that was done. Again, it's media. People make mistakes in media, and if someone makes mistakes over and over again, you start to lose trust in them. But we've got Paul Krugman, Brian Ross, Manu Raju, Jeremy Herb, Zeke Miller. You have a variety. CNN has a few of them on here, I will say. But what you'll notice is that it's not one person doing this again and again and again, and they all try to correct themselves. So actually, what we've found is that Trump's definition of fake news is actually not fake news. It's just news that is incorrect and opposed to him as president. He will also call fake news anything that he disagrees with. For example, the New York Times article about his taxes, he said was fake news, that those were not his taxes and they made up the whole story. But the New York Times has evidence, and they show the evidence in the article, and you can see about his taxes. So it's not fake news. He just uses that term. So it makes it very confusing what actually counts as fake news versus just inaccurate reporting or mistaken reporting. Okay, so if we, okay, so what I'd like to do now is ask you to find your own fake news story. And you can do that in a variety of ways. And you want to find an actual fake news story, something that's completely false. And I would suggest starting with one of those fact check sites and see if you can find if you can find something in one of those fact check sites that is completely false. And then we'll do it in groups again. So I'll reset the groups. And then if you can, if you find a link, save that link, and then you could share it with us and we'd be able to see which fake news article you found. Okay, so any questions about that? Okay, I'll open up the rooms and you can join them, and I'll pop in and make sure everyone knows what's going on.
Check. To find my article.
Found the article already?
Yeah.
What did you choose?
Something, and I will check whether it's a fake or not, and then I will share it to you. So likewise, you guys try to find something interesting, and then check whether it's fake or not, and then tell us.
Everyone doing okay here?
No one's talking.
Okay, do you know what to do?
Find your own fake news story.
Okay, are you having success?
No.
No? Have you tried going to like PolitiFact or Snopes and browse around there to see if you can find something?
No. Somebody just killed me.
What is that?
Among Us. I can make up my own fake news story.
You could. Yeah, another thing you could do is just like Google top 10 fake news stories or something like that. Fake news stories from 2020. Justin, Arube, you two doing all right?
Yep.
So no response.
Yeah, I'm looking for my news.
Did you find
my
something,
fake news
Arube?
article right now, Professor.
You found one?
Breaking news. Nancy Pelosi's son was exec at
No, I
gas
haven't, Professor, not
company
yet.
that did business in Ukraine.
Aha. Yep. Is that fake news?
Yes.
There you go. And then save the link. Arube, did you find one?
No, Professor, I haven't.
Haven't found one. So you can use Google and just search like fake news 2020 or you could search
Sorry, it's
Snopes.com.
really loud.
What's that?
The dogs are barking really
Oh, I
loud.
see. And one other one is PolitiFact. PolitiFact is really good for that because they have the pants on fire thing, which makes it easy. I'll type that into the chat room again.
I sent you an email of the dogs.
Oh, good. Excellent.
3 of
Thank
them.
you. Great. Excellent. 3 dogs. Oh, man, that's exciting. All right, I'm going to check on another breakout room.
Okay.
Everything good here?
We're having trouble finding fake news.
Okay.
So what we are going to do is to choose one article which is fake, which we are going to do research. Is it false or is it true?
You
So
want
we're
to you want to find fake news in particular.
okay.
And so you could use,
So
I think
for example,
PolitiFact would make it easy. Yeah, go ahead.
So for example, we chose one article which is which tends to be true on the rating. So in the rating it should be false, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. False,
Okay.
or if you have PolitiFact, it's got the pants on fire mode. That's totally fake. Fake news.
Okay. So 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 our group is going to find one article, or we have to find each one a different false news.
Just one for your group is fine.
Okay.
And then you can also use Google if you want. Google fake news 2020. That might help you find something.
Okay.
All right, we'll do another couple minutes.
Okay.
That's exactly what came up. It said nothing. It couldn't find it.
Oh.
Can I ask, did this group find a fake news story?
We found 2.
Excellent.
But one of them, I don't know if it's true or not.
Okay. Did you try typing it into Nope?
No.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Cool.
I'm trying to see if
Excellent.
I could get it quick.
Yeah, and again, remember, try using just the keywords because their search engine is not as good as Google's. All right, we'll do about another minute or so.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So everybody's on their way back. Okay, so let's talk about that. What did you find? I'm gonna go one group at a time. So you got 3 groups. So I'm hoping that we could find 3 articles among the 3 groups to be able to share. So group 1 was Kamira, Mary, Nicole, and Chantel. What did you find? Were you able to find some fake news? I can ask one of you. How about Nicole? Are you open to sharing what your group talked about?
Yes, we find 2 articles, but we are not sure about one.
Great. Do you have a link to each of those articles?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you put it in the chat room?
It's already in the chat room.
The link is. I'm not seeing it. Let's see. Yeah, I don't. Oh, there we go. Okay. So there's one from Mary. Thank you. So let's take. I'll share my screen and we can all look at it together. Yeah. So here we go. And it's might as well, if you're in either of the 2 other groups, you might as well put a link right in the chat room now, and then we can come to that. So no, Kamala Harris didn't tweet. We need to focus on defunding the police. So the question, it says the tweet boosted a false claim about the 2020 Democratic vice presidential nominee. So the claim was that she said that. Does everyone know who Kamala Harris is? She has a chance to become the most powerful woman in America, and Joe Biden has picked her to become her vice presidential candidate. So she's running with Joe Biden against Donald Trump and Mike Pence. And actually, let me just share this with you for those who are interested. There is a debate tonight at 9 o'clock between the 2 of them. So here's the current vice president, Mike Pence, and this is Kamala Harris. She is a senator from California and selected to be Joe Biden's running mate. Just to show, you can go to the New York Times and just ask how to watch or you could just type in debate, VP debate, and a whole bunch of information will come up. So you can watch it on any of these networks if you're interested. I doubt it's going to be as chaotic as the presidential debate was. But let's go back to the article. So did she? They already say right in the title here, they respond to it already. No, she didn't tweet that. So here's the claim. This is the term claim. We're going to start using that term more often. A claim is basically, you have a fact, you have an opinion, and you have a claim. And a fact is something that you can measure, like how many people are unemployed, or what is the if when your doctor gets your blood work, they look at the measurements, and those are all facts. They're not based on anyone's opinion or evaluation. An opinion is like, do you like apples or oranges? And nobody can argue against you. It's just your opinion. But this is a claim. It needs to be supported by evidence, and it does not count as an opinion because it has to be based on reality. So this one says they're trying to evaluate this, and they just give it a false rating. So I would say that, Mary, you did find a fake news item. And you can find out its origin in early October 2020, so very recently. Snopes readers asked about the authenticity of an image of a tweet. And I'm highlighting tweet because we should start tracking where some of these things are coming from. And so this is a tweet, and it was labeled as false. Okay, and I saw there was another link in the chat room. And that came from Tenzin. And again, I'd invite you, if you and your group found another article, even it doesn't have to be from Snopes, it could just be the article itself if you want. Anything that you think might be fake news, or if you're wondering whether it's fake news, you can take a look at it. So we return to Amy Coney Barrett. Is she a Rhodes Scholar? And it says right here, a Rhodes Scholar is someone who received a prestigious scholarship, not someone who attended Rhodes College. So let's see. People said that she's a Rhodes Scholar, and the answer is false. The origin, about a week ago, the White House press secretary said that, that she is a Rhodes Scholar. So this came from, the White House press secretary is chosen by the president to be the speaking voice of that office. And so Kayleigh McEnany said that she was a Rhodes Scholar, but actually she just went to a Rhodes College. So that's different than being a Rhodes Scholar. So it's probably a misunderstanding on the part of the press secretary. It's hard to know, but when people don't evaluate that and just start sharing that all around, eventually it starts to surface that we're just spreading fake news around. That was a mistake, and it could be considered to be misinformation. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Okay, anybody else find one? Let's see, I'm going to take a look at our groups. So we've got one from breakout room 2, one from breakout room 1. How about breakout room 3? That's Arube, Justin, or Taekwon. Were you able to find, who else was in there? Mia was also in that group. Were you able to find any fake news?
I was, Professor. I found the false news article.
You found one?
Nah, I wasn't able to find none yet.
Okay. Arube, did you say you did find one?
Yeah, hold on. I need to copy the link for it.
All right, cool. Oh, here's one from Zashoni also. Great. So let's take a look at Zashoni's, and Arube, if you could copy your link into the chat room, we'll take a look at that. So this comes from Politico, which is, there we go. Not a fact-checking site, but you'll notice that newspapers now often do fact-checking as well. And they'll make a whole article out of it. They just don't make that their main purpose. So Politico is considered to be a web-based newspaper. And the state report, Russian, Chinese, and Iranian disinformation narratives echo one another. So you didn't actually find a fake news story. What you found is an explanation of where some of this stuff is coming from. So disinformation is another term that is used, and we'll come back to that. So again, this is not a fake news story. It's just an explanation of where some fake news is coming from. So let's take a look at what Arube found. Do flu vaccines increase your risk of testing positive? So this is this is why this is so important. Because you could have somebody say, you know, stop getting the flu shot because they think it will increase their chances of getting COVID. So we have to find out if this is true or not, because if everybody stops getting the flu shot, the flu can also kill tens of thousands of people, you know, so it could make it even more deadly for a flu season. So now we have COVID and we have a flu season, or maybe that is true. Let's take a look. So this says completely false. So that is fake news. So that is not true. So you should get a flu shot. I think I always get a flu shot, and it's not so much about, it is about me, but it's also about keeping it from spreading. You know, with COVID, we don't have a shot right now, so it just keeps spreading. The flu will do the same thing unless a certain number of people get vaccinated, and that really cuts down the number of people who get the flu. So this says, since the early weeks of the US COVID-19 outbreak in March, social media users began spreading claims that people who had gotten vaccinated to increase their immunity against seasonal influenza were at a higher risk of catching or testing positive for COVID-19. The assertions took a variety of forms and resurged with new viral postings over weeks. In March and early April, Many cited misinterpretations of a 2020 study by an epidemiologist, someone who studies epidemics, with the U.S. Department of Defense that examined how 2017-18 flu season affected personnel. And they said, you can get coronavirus from the flu shot, one person wrote to Snopes, and that which they unpack below. To unpack something is to give more information about. Then in late April and May, the claims shifted to focus on remarks by anti-vaccine advocate and conspiracy theorist Dr. Rashid Buttar, who said in a video interview posted on Facebook all the way back to 1984, all the way up to now, 2018, there are multiple studies that show that if you had the flu shot, false positives on COVID-19 testing. So he's saying false positives. So that's also an important thing. The article, the claim makes it sound like you're more likely to get COVID, but actually it's just that you're more likely to test positive. But the whole thing is false anyway. And notice that you can not only look into those studies and find out that it was a misinterpretation of a 2020 study, you can also look into the person who made the video, and the person is an anti-vaccine advocate. So in other words, he has a vested interest in saying, don't get a vaccine, because that's part of his work. He's also a conspiracy theorist, which means he has a history of saying things that have no foundation in reality, that are not factually based. So they're doing the same thing that we do, evaluating the claim. Where did it come from? Oh, you said you found all those studies. So let's go look at those studies. Those studies don't actually say that. You're misinterpreting those studies. And who's the person who said this? Oh, he's an anti-vaccine advocate and a conspiracy theorist. So the whole thing just falls to pieces once you start investigating that particular claim. So that's really good. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to get sent all around Facebook like this. Look at all these people who reacted. 392 people reacted. 479 people shared that. And so when 479 people share it, how many people saw it? Probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of people saw it on their Facebook and this little, or on Instagram. And you've probably seen little things like this always. And here it is attributed to this person, and maybe the quote is true. But again, you have to go and use one of these fact checkers, do some research, see if the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, NPR has written an article about this, and do that research to find out if it has any basis in reality, or if it's a conspiracy theory, or if it's just fake news. Okay. Any questions or comments about all this? Do you feel, can I ask, do you feel, let me put this poll up here again. Same one as before, and see if maybe the results have changed. Don't feel pressure to change your decision. So it's the same poll. Oops, hold on, I have to clear the poll. Relaunch the poll. There we go. So go ahead and respond to it. Do you feel like you'd be able to identify fake news? Great. We got 9 of 12, 10 of 12. A few more seconds for the last two. Okay, 11 of 12. There we go. Great. And I'm going to end it. There we go. So that's great. One person said no. If that person wants to share, you could unmute yourself and explain something that's confusing to you, or if you have a question. I don't want to pressure you. Oops, you're not looking at them. There we go.
I chose no, Professor.
Okay, so Arun, what is difficult about identifying fake news?
It's not that it's difficult. It's that sometimes fake news is the first thing to come out, right? And if you look into it and you don't find any evidence to prove that it's false, you're gonna believe it.
That may be true, and that does happen. But now that we've had this session, you've got a variety of strategies that you can take to any kind of article and see whether it's true or not. So you can use Snopes, you can use PolitiFact, you can use factcheck.org. There's a lot of those types of websites. You can also look at a reliable newspaper. The three that we use mainly in this course are GREAT, New York Times, National Public Radio, or NPR.org, and the Wall Street Journal. They all are very reliable sources. Based on my evaluations, I find them all to be very reliable. And you know, so you just have to research. You know, there is no way of knowing in your gut whether a story is fake news or not. It may sound, think of the three that we looked at. The one that sounded most unlikely was that Trump's grandfather was a pimp. That sounded like clear fake news. But among all of the things that we evaluated on those top three news articles, that was the only one that had any basis in fact. And anything that might have been remotely close to, it was also considered to be fake news. But note that you do have to do that research and find out what the people who are investigating those stories are finding. Do they find evidence, a complete lack of evidence, tiny shred of evidence, but the whole thing was misleading, and that sort of thing. Okay, so a few terms. I just want to say, if you have not done the assignment on fake news, please do that. It will be enlightening. It's a very interesting 3-part video series, and it says a lot about where this comes from and why it is with us. So I'm going to type in a few different words. We have misinformation. Well, actually, let's start with active measures. We've got that word, misinformation, and fake news. These are 3 examples of, there's a lot of different ways you can say fake news or something like it, but they are all slightly different. Does anyone who watched has already seen the New York Times 3-part series on fake news? Do you recall what active measures are? What are active measures? That first word I put in the chat room. Active measures. Okay, and it is kind of confusing, and it's meant to be confusing, so I would understand. Tenzin, did you figure it out?
I remember active measures. There are 3 types of. Oh, wait a second.
Hello?
Hello?
So,
Tenzin had something come up. It sounded like a rattlesnake, but I'm guessing it wasn't.
Yeah, that was pressure cooker.
Okay.
So, I don't recall completely, but active measure is also called bullshit, and
True.
They have into 3 kinds of active measures. One is, I think, kidnapping. Is that?
Not really. No, the whole thing is bullshit. That you got it right.
Oh, that's
it.
on the bullshit. Okay.
Yeah.
I see under one thing there are 3 types, like disinformation, kidnapping, and then what? I forgot the another one. Yeah.
Disinformation, yes. Kidnapping might have something to do with a particular story.
Kidnapping, disinformation, and forgeries. I think
And
these 3.
forgeries. Okay. And the main one, what we're talking about here really with active measures, this was, and you'll find out this information if you haven't already seen the docuseries. It was a Soviet Union's effort to spread fake information about America in particular, so that people started to dislike the United States. It started way back in the 1980s, and they called it active measures because it was a military operation, and they didn't want people to know what they were doing exactly. So they use it's kind of a code word. So if you see the word active measures, that's another way of saying fake news, really, or disinformation. That was another word that they used in that video. When you compare that to misinformation, misinformation is kind of President Trump is really the king of misinformation, because sometimes he gives us fake news, but usually what he gives us is a spin on something that that is mostly wrong, but there's a sliver of truth to it. So, for example, after he returned to the White House, he said coronavirus is no worse than the flu, and don't worry about coronavirus. And the truth is that there's actual scientific evidence, and the evidence just says he's wrong about that. And so, is it fake news or misinformation? I think most people are reporting it as misinformation because the flu is deadly. Coronavirus is deadlier, but he's misinterpreting the facts that on those two different diseases. So that's considered to be misinformation as opposed to fake news. The first fake news story from that video series came from the Soviet Union, and it was planted in India in a newspaper in India by the Soviet Union, and they wrote a story saying that the United States invented AIDS, the disease AIDS, for the purpose of killing gay people and black people. And they wrote that into an article. They published it in India, and over the span of the next 2-3 years, it started to spread around India, spread into Africa, and eventually it made its way to the United States, and people were, we had no idea this was a military tactic against us. It was trying to create hatred toward America, and it was completely fake. And they'll talk to you more about that in the video. But one aspect of fake news is its purpose is to create harm, is to hurt people, is to create division. So fake news nowadays mostly appears in social media. There are the three main countries involved the United States, Russia, Iran, and China. U.S. officials have found fake news from all of those places, and people post things on Facebook and Twitter mostly, and then they share them. If you agree with it, you're more likely to share it. And so then people pass it around, and it becomes a part of our society, and people start to believe things that are completely false, and they're meant to divide us in particular. So when we looked at that list of the top 10, notice all of the top 10 fake news stories were political. Most of them were critical of Democrats and supportive of Trump. And that's kind of the nature of fake news in this time period, that a lot of them are critical of Democrats and trying to get Trump reelected at this point. So then there's one other one. Oh no, we got it. Active measures, fake news, and misinformation. So the purpose of it is the purpose changes slightly with each one. Active measures is a specifically Russian thing that their military uses to try and create division in the United States. Whereas misinformation is manipulating the facts for your own personal benefit, and fake news is usually meant to cause harm to people. They're all very similar, but they do have slightly different purposes. So I'd like to show you one more contemporary website, or more contemporary evaluation. Going back to Kamala Harris, again, the vice president selection for Biden. So here's an example of how you can find out whether something is fake. The New York Times has done a whole article on three viral falsehoods. In other words, falsehoods that have been spread around the internet. This word debunking, we've talked a little bit about that before. To debunk something is to prove that it is highly unlikely to be true, or it's completely false. So people debunked that the earth was flat, for example, and there's really no good evidence for that anymore. There's lots of evidence that the earth is round. So that's the idea of debunking, is you take an argument and you prove that it is almost definitely false, or it is definitely false. And here's Kamala Harris. And here's a little introduction. The first one is the Pizzagate conspiracy theory. So if you've watched the docuseries on fake news already, you're familiar with the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, and it is nuts. You would think nobody is going to believe this, but instead it was one of the most widely spread news stories on the internet in 2016. And the theory was that Hillary Clinton had a child sex ring operation in the basement of a pizzeria in Washington. Number one piece of information that helps to debunk that is that that pizzeria does not have a basement. And so that's going to make it pretty hard for you to do anything in that basement. So that was debunked a long time ago. That's all they had to do, is go, wait, there's not even a basement here, so we can't go investigate. However, people believed it to such an extent that one man showed up with a gun saying, let the children go. And it got violent. People got verbally violent and then threateningly violent. I believe somebody was even injured in that particular standoff. So where does this come from? It was published on the conspiracy mongering website InfoWars. So now let's go back to our source evaluation. Let's learn a little bit about InfoWars. Think about some of the things we talked about when it comes to source evaluation. Does it show a clear political bias? Is it clear where the opinion section is? Is there shock value? All those things are bad. Here is InfoWars. Oh, there we go. First thing that comes up is Save America, InfoWars Money Bomb. And then we have a thing on fire. City of Seattle paying Antifa militants to write F the police on BLM mural. So it doesn't take long to look at this to realize, take long looking at a website like this to realize that it is a highly biased source of news. And so it's not terribly surprising that it would post fake news. It's run by a man named Alex Jones. So now we can look into Alex Jones. Who is Alex Jones? He's an American far-right radio show host, political extremist, and conspiracy theorist. So already we know that he's not a reliable source. That's all we had to read. You could read more about Alex Jones and find out just how awful of a person he is. But I think we've learned enough to know that the Pizzagate conspiracy theory is not true. It wasn't true in 2016, and now all of a sudden Kamala Harris is supposedly involved. So there's an article here sharing how people started to say that, there was a pizza party. So they started saying, remember what pizza is code language for. The video was viewed 30,000 times. And you'll notice things like Twitter come up here a lot, Facebook. These are the sources of misinformation, disinformation, and fake news, and even active measures, because there are, for example, Russians who create fake profiles, who work for the Russian military. And they create American profiles, and then they support far-right causes, and then they create another profile that supports a far-left cause, and they will even go so far as to create events and invite people to events. And sometimes those events are right across the street from each other. So you get a Black Lives Matter rally and a white supremacist rally that happen on the same day at the same time across the street from each other, hoping that it turns violent. And so that's the new military strategy Russia is using against us, way more than Iran or China, and for much longer.
What is their purpose of doing this to us? Like, what have we ever done to them?
Well, I mean, we have a long history with Russia. We had a Cold War with them, and their economy collapsed as a result of the Cold War. And Putin was a soldier in the Russian army at that time, and he is now their president. So there was a moment we thought that they were going to become more democratic, and in the 1990s, and we're now realizing that they didn't. They still have, they just poisoned somebody who was against Putin, against their president. So they still have a lot of the old Soviet Union practices. I think Putin wants to be the king, just like Trump wants to be the king. But Putin is.
Them two is different. Trump just want money. He want power. Okay.
They're very similar people, actually. They both want power, and so Putin realized going to war with America is a bad idea. So you're not going to win. We have way more weapons and way more soldiers and way more sophisticated technology. So instead, he's trying to infiltrate us by having us hate each other. And then we go to war with each other. And if you take a moment to think about our world right now, you can see the impact of that. And now, ironically, our own president is helping to do that by dividing us even further. A second falsehood has to do with her heritage, saying that she is not Black. And here's another one, Kamala Harris. Here, it's a tweet. And we get another one here, Facebook post. And these things get spread around. So Facebook, now we talked about this on Monday, Facebook got involved. We asked the question, should they get involved? And they did. And they added a fact check to that post, so that in order to see that post, you had to click on the fact check. And that says, this information has no basis in fact. So Facebook is getting involved in this, not as much as people want them to, but a little bit. And Ms. Owens, the person who posted that, is now going, she says that she's going to sue them for blocking her posts like that. And then there's Jussie Smollett. Maybe you know who this is. I actually don't. But it is a baseless allegation, which means there are no facts to prove that it's true, that she is connected to this actor, or that she is his aunt, and knew in advance that Mr. Smollett was planning to stage an assault against himself early last year. So this is also being spread around. It's being spread by notice that the New York Times is helping us to find out who the source is. It's a right-wing website. It's called True Pundit, and we can look it up. That's the way to do it. Just look it up yourself and find out. And now you can look at this website and evaluate this website. Is it politically biased? Is it filled with shock value stuff? Can you tell the difference between the opinion section and the news items, and so forth? So there is a way to find out. And really, when we talk about citizenship in this class, this is part of your role as a citizen of a region, or even just of the world. And really, when I talk about citizenship, I mean just being a person who helps create the greater good. And knowing what is true and what is not true is part of that. So in a way, you didn't ask for it, I didn't ask for it, but it is our responsibility to go and find out if these things are true. So we're not spreading them. So if you get a Facebook post, a Twitter post, and you agree with it, but you don't see an author, and it sounds a little off, if you get any kind of Facebook post, I would start by not trusting it if it's about the news. And then just use Snopes. Look it up in Snopes, look it up in PolitiFact, look it up in the New York Times. Does it have any basis in fact? And please don't send it. Absolutely do not share it, even if you agree with it. Don't share it if it's not based on fact, because then you're perpetuating this warlike culture that we have developed about information. So the last thing I want to do, we got just a couple minutes, is just share our next module with you. I should note that we are now at the end of Unit 4 and making our way to Unit 5. And as we do that, we're about at the midterm of this semester. So I wanted to note that I'm going to start going back into the gradebook. And if there's anything you have not submitted, I'm going to start assigning zeros to those assignments, which is not to say you can't do them anymore. Some of them I would be open to you doing if needed. But I do need to inform you that you did not turn that in. And that's
so
the best way to do that.
What time are we gonna be grading? We grading it today?
I did some grading this morning. So I probably will not get another chance because I have a meeting later today. So I'll probably do a little more tomorrow morning.
All right, so I'm gonna try to hand in everything today, but I need some I got questions about that.
Okay, great. And like I said, even if you get a 0, you can still go back and redo many of the assignments and get a better grade. It's just that if I don't give you a 0, you may not know that you missed it. So when you get the 0, you'll be like, why did I get the 0? Most likely it's because you didn't turn it in, or you turned in the wrong thing. So just reach out to me and say, can I do this again?
All right, question. Did you get my did you check to see if it went through for the evaluation?
I could take a look at that right after class. So just stick around.
All right.
Thank you. So then our module due tomorrow, just 2 things. One article that this is actually it's actually a comic strip and a podcast. So It's 28 minutes to listen. And as you listen, you have to complete this guide right here. So give yourself like an hour to do it. And then it also has a comic strip. So you can read this little comic strip as a part of your assignment. And that's it. Just do the reading guide for tomorrow and submit that. And then next week, actually I should say, yeah, next week we're going to get into Unit 5, and that will be evidence and argument. So we are really at a turning point in the semester. When we get into evidence and argument, you're gonna need to keep up with the work. It is difficult language, and you can see from the titles here. Fact versus opinion. Okay, that's fine. What is a primary source? Comparing primary and secondary sources. What is an argument? Conspiracy theories versus supported argument. So we're starting to get into some deep thinking about arguments. Now that we know whether the sources are reliable, that information, whether it's reliable, let's look at the arguments. So we're going to start doing that kind of thing next week. Any questions? Okay, great. So I'll stick around. Taekwon, I'll take a look for your assignment. I do have a meeting coming up though, so if you have questions, you can send them to me on Remind or by email, or you can just, we could spend, tomorrow I'll have time to answer questions. So we could do it tomorrow if you want. There's no rush on, I mean, you don't have to have your assignments in tonight or anything. I'm not gonna go through and give everyone zeros tonight. I'm talking about, I'm gonna start doing it as I, over the next week or so. So just take a look and see if there's anything missing and get it in if you find something. Have a nice day, everyone. I hope all is well with you.
Say to you, no. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you.
We kind of feel bad though. Some of us here, all right, especially you with the blue sweater, you outside in the cold. Anyway, we hope your mother feel better.
Thank you very much.
And we love you, all right?
Thank you very much, Ashodi. I love you guys
now
too.
y'all are dismissed.
It means a lot to me.
Every single one of y'all.
Blessings. Blessings.
All right, thank you. I'll see you all tomorrow.
All right.
Okay, Taekwon, I'm gonna take a look at the assignments here.
All right.
I'm not sharing my screen, am I?
No.
Okay. So I got 3 more source evaluations. Is that what you're talking about?
Got 3 of them?
That you submitted yesterday.
At
At about 12 o'clock yesterday.
I know that one and I submitted one of them. I didn't know it was 3 of them.
Well, the assignment is for 3. Let me take a look at it.
Oh yeah, the authors, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it now. Well, it's loading.
All right, one question before you leave. I chose my 5 authors my 5 articles. You said 3 authors from there. So how do I do that? Like, I just choose the authors, look them up, and then.
You mean the works cited? How do you put? What do you do with them? Is that what you're wondering?
The evaluation, but I have to use that with my articles.
Yeah, so you want to use that source evaluation guide. Same thing that you submitted here.
So I look up their name on Google or just use the articles.
You want to do the same thing you did. So I'm looking at your assignment now. It looks like you did it correctly. Yeah, this is really good. So the one thing is that, it says 2020 is recent. I think you could say it's appropriate.
I know you don't. That's why.
And you want to make sure you get enough information on. So you just do the same thing you did yesterday, but do it for your 5 authors.
Also choose 5 authors.
Yeah, the 5 that you chose for your personal learning project.
Use 5 of them.
Yeah, and just fill out that source evaluation guide for each one of them.
Also look them up for Google and you fill them out. All right, I was kind of confused. So I'll figure out how to do the media stuff. I know you gotta go, so I figure out how to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so yeah, just use Google, but you can also use Wikipedia. If you find that they're faculty at a university, which often is the case, or they work for a magazine or a newspaper. That's all really important information. And they might have more. You can click on their bio at their university or newspaper and learn a little bit more about them there as well.
All right, no problem. I got you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a good day.
All right, blessings.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right, thanks.